Hi, this is Love Your Work, and I'm Whitney Wiley, and I want to thank you for joining me today. This is a show where we talk to guests about doing work they love and the lessons that they've learned along the way. And today I have with me Holly Fitch Stevens, and Holly is a coach. And she actually does something sort of interesting in her coach practice. So looking forward to hearing more from Holly. Holly, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Whitney, and thank you so much for inviting me. I am just so honored to be on your program. I've watched some of your interviews, and I really am grateful to be part of your group here and be in great company. So thank you for having
Oh,
me.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's a joy to have you on the show. We are connected in a couple of other groups, and I know you're doing wonderful things. So, why don't you explain what kind of coach you are and how your practice is just a little different from what people think of when they think of coaches?
Okay, well, what I do is I have lots of years of coaching and NLP and transformational training and human potential coaching and things like that. And over the years, I had realized that there was a big gap. And it really, personally, for me, the gap, I found myself being a full-time student, grabbing everything I could. I actually have a virtual library of Congress when it comes to personal development and coaching. If it's out there, I was buying it. So I realized there was an issue there that I never was getting out of the learning mode. So I turned that around and realized that most of my colleagues and my peer group were in the same boat. So what I do is I take away the part, I bridge the gap between coach and client. So I actually vet clients or pre-qualify
Mm.
and go through an onboarding session for coaches for their clients, because I found, for me, in my experience, and most coaches, they don't like to ask the money. They don't like to be the bill collector. They don't like the part. So I thought, well, I do have, I'm very good at sales, but only because because when I'm passionate about something, that
Right.
I really understand it, and I can speak with authority and speak with passion. So my company, Holly Fitch Stevens, we actually will do all the vetting and tee their clients up so that when the client comes to the coach can get right into coaching. The client now understands what's expected of them, because when we have to agree that they can't just have the coach do it for them. So I also do help them understand what coaching is, what they can expect from the coach when they go with them. Each coach that does work I work with gives me a criteria. What's their ultimate client? What do they like in a client? What do they want? What do they expect in a client? On the flip side, I also ask the client, what are they looking for? What do they think coaching is? And also help them find possibilities in being able to afford coaching. Because sometimes that's the thing. They say, well, I can't afford it. But maybe it's just understanding value versus expense. So my company literally takes all of that away from the coach so the coach can coach. And I work with these clients to establish rapport. A lot of times I've done this before in a different venue. And so I'm kind of the go-to person when they might have some financial difficulties, and I kind of get them through that so that the money issue is out of the picture.
Do you see yourself as sort of a matchmaker? Because that's what it sounds like to me.
It's interesting you say that, Whitney, because when I was launching my company, which is relatively new, is I was trying to think of this slogan or that phrase that people say, oh, you need that elevator pitch or whatever. And I think about that $1 million matchmaker woman that's on TV, though I'm very not much like her, but yeah, it is. I'm either, depending upon who the person is. Some people call me a broker, some people call me an agent, and some people even call me a matchmaker. It just really depends upon the person that I'm working with. If I'm working with, like, I have a ghostwriter, editor. And so she kind of looks at me kind of like an agent. So you're exactly right. It's funny you said that because I'm like $1 million matchmaker for coaches.
I love that. I love that. I can see agent or broker, and it is not just the matchmaking part, but kind of you mentioned vetting and really setting up the relationship so that the coach and the client can just get into the coaching and client and leave that the business part of that on the side, that you kind of handle that for them. So what is it that you love about what you're doing? I can see the value of it from both sides, but what is it that you love about this?
Well, I so believe and know that my life has changed dramatically by connecting with coaches, by connecting with mentors. Like I say, I have a library. I have a virtual Library of Congress of Personal Development, and it's really great to be in that student mode. Unfortunately, though, it's putting the pieces together, and I
Yeah,
had a lot of frustration with that. And I thought, I kept looking at myself saying, what's wrong with me? Why can't I be this Tony Robbins or this, I study all this Tony Robbins stuff, or, Jack Canfield is my mentor. And I know that you work with Jack Canfield too. And, the great thing about going through this process is I realized that I get to connect people and I get to see results. And
yeah,
I get to, because a lot of people that come to me looking for a coach really don't understand what coaching really is. Sometimes they kind of look at it as it comes to me in different ways, but people really don't understand what is a coach. And so clarifying that gets results better, because when
right.
people know what's expected of them on both sides, the results are phenomenal. And I get charged about it. It lights me up because when I connected with Jack, mostly pretty much Jack and Patty Aubrey, the difference, the shift in going from student to coach to mentor was phenomenal for me. And I said, this is it. I've got to get that, bridge that gap. So that's why I'm so excited about it.
I love that. I love that you absolutely saw a need and looked to fill it. I don't know anyone else, and I know tons and tons of coaches. I don't know anyone else that does what you do. So, there may be someone out there, but I'm not aware of it. So that makes, um, it just speaks to your ability to see something and say, this would be, if I were a coach, this would be something that would help me. Or if I was looking for a coach, that I could see how this could help someone. So just want to say congratulations on that, and figuring out a niche that, is not overly saturated. Do you work mainly with coaches or for coaches, or do you mainly work, or is it a little bit of both?
Well, since I am exclusive, okay, so that's a really, really great question, because there's a lot of coaching organizations that offer directories and things like that we can,
Hmm.
can be part of. And the difference with me is I work, my actual client is the coach.
Okay.
I have the relationship is more for the coach, is with the coach. But once again, it's kind of more like a buyer's agent and a selling agent, because it really ultimately people will come to me and say, I got to find a coach. And since I'm exclusive, that means I have, like I mentioned before, I have an editor slash ghostwriter. I only have one. And the reason I do that is because they are people that like, and trust. I
Yes.
understand their work. So I like to say that I'm much more exclusive, even though I'm hired by the coach. I will not put a client in with a coach if we feel it's not a match.
Right.
On the other side of that, I have like fallback programs if the coach doesn't have it. Like sometimes the coach has like kind of bridging, like mini programs and, just getting started. If they don't, then I might be able to find somebody, a program that I may be an affiliate with, that I can put somebody in that I think, well, this would be a better start for you so you can get in the habit of being coached before putting them in something bigger that might cost them more money.
No, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So let's go back a little bit in time. I know you've mentioned sales, but were you thinking when you started coaching, when you finished your training, were you thinking that this was the direction that you would go in, or was it really sort of the opportunity presented itself? You saw a need, opportunity, and just decided to run with it?
Well, for me, like it did not present itself. And I think a lot of people are going to relate to this. I had no idea which way I was going to go. I started out many, many, many years ago in the health and wellness arena, and actually kind of got thrown into sales. And I really, the reason I did very well with the sales is because I had the power to run my health club the way I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead, my first experience with personal development was a Dale Carnegie course in my 20s. And I learned about, how your name is really important, and just how to win friends and influence people. And it was pretty funny because when I went into it, I thought it was going to make me a meaner boss or more strict boss, but it turned out that I became a kinder, gentler, more open-minded person. And I just kind of by default, I don't know, by instinct, I changed up the whole way I ran my health spa. And what I did was I didn't hire salespeople. And back in those days, I don't know if anybody in your audience remembers European health spas or spa ladies, spa fitnesses and stuff like that. It was hardcore sales, get them in the door, sell them. And they had things like lead boxes where you put your little note in there or your address in there, and then you get a free week. And instead of hiring salespeople, I hired people who loved what they did. And I did something very, very out of the box. I call it ignorance on fire. I was just on fire coming out of this thing. And I was just, I didn't know what I was doing. I just leaned into it, like Jack says, and I just said, this is how I'm going to do it. And I told all the girls in my health club, we had the only ladies' health club at that time, so this is what we're going to do. Instead of you doing these lead boxes, because I know you pretend that you're on the telephone, you talk to your friends, and they're calling them, what we're going to do is each member that you have is your member for life. The better you treat that member, the more referrals will bring you. So if that member doesn't show up, guess what you get to do? You get to call them and ask them where they are. And also, if they weren't working or if they're teaching a class, if that member came in and brought somebody in, that sale belonged to them because they made minimum wage and their money was in commissions. That's how it was set up. So even if they were off from work, if a member came in and that person the member was signed up by somebody else, because that member was so happy, they were satisfied, they'd bring a guest in, we would sign them up and that person would still make the commission. Okay. I had the same staff for 13 years, pretty much.
Wow. That's pretty impressive in a health club.
Yeah, it is. It is. We had so much fun. We had so much fun getting the results for the ladies. We had so much fun because we didn't have to call these lead boxes. We'd call people up and say, where you been? We don't see you. And another thing was that I learned along the way is person's name is very important.
Yes.
Can't stress that enough. And once again, ignorance on fire, some things that I learned from Dale Carnegie is I required everyone in my staff to call people by name. And I said and now here in the South, people usually are called Miss Holly or Miss Whitney, unless they say, well, you can just call me. But I said, you need to know members by name. Every time they come in, greet them. it was amazing. We did really, really well with doing that. So I was in the industry for a long time, kind of speed up a little bit. I went from one of these, where you bring these, these health clubs that have massive promotions and things into elite health clubs, and then I was just doing a lot of sales, but it was because I was passionate. But I always was studying personal development and everything. I couldn't get enough of it. And so from there, I just started evolving into these really hardcore, they're called, some people know them as Life Spring. They're these really hardcore transformational training where you go in and they kind of capture you for like a week, and they don't let you leave the room and all this kind of stuff. It really takes something like Jack, I always say it takes Jack's principles, and they just put it on steroids, but it's really not sustainable. But it worked for me. And I really fell in love with that and started coaching or assisting in coaching there, and just grew from there and started getting more. And like I said, I started learning more and learning more and learning more. And where it evolved actually in the last year and a half from being a coach one-on-one, because I still have my own personal clients that I've had, and I do some group coaching also. But where I went to a vetting agent or coach is I was working with an online company as a contractor. They hired me as a salesperson. There were 12 of us. And what happened was I was finding that I was bringing these people in and doing onboarding, and they would go with a coach. They had several coaches in this company. And the bottom line here was that each coach was a little different. And when they started letting a lot of the salespeople go, I started creating my own product just organically and started connecting clients, because we had people that really were good on social media, and some people needed life coaches and some people needed tech coaches. So I connected them that way by going through an onboarding discovery process. So I recreated it, and I was pretty much closing 93 to 95% of the people and connecting them with coaches, and the results and the retention was unbelievable. And I said, I'm on to something here.
Wow.
And so from there, it was I kept kind of pushing that away because I didn't want to be a salesperson. But in the end all, I saw that was a huge gap. People love, when people get into coaching, they love what they do. They're dying to help people. They want to do it, but that gap was so huge. And they really didn't need a salesperson. They needed somebody that thought like them, walk like them, believe like them, in that same mindset to connect that way. And I said, you know what? I can do this. And that's really how I evolved into it.
Wow, that's a pretty cool story. What was the very first job you had though?
Oh, very first job was actually waiting tables. My first, well, actually, my very, very first job was working in the movie theater, and the movie was The Exorcist.
Really? I've always wanted to work in a movie theater. I wouldn't have wanted to work for that one though.
Yeah, it was crazy because it was, it was a beautiful theater in Pittsburgh. Matter of fact, it's called the Warner Theater. It's still there today with a very old type. And this is back in the days that the movies would only come to one theater, So, and I was 15, and I also worked at a hot dog stand, whatever jobs I could get. And yeah, I worked in the movie theater, and it was a fun job. It was very interesting because it was The Exorcist, and people stood in line, and I sold them popcorn. And then from there, then I went into the food serving and bartending for many, 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 many years. I did that quite a bit, and then into health and fitness.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. It's it's always interesting to see what first jobs people have. What would you say were some of the lessons that you took from either food service or working at the movie theater?
Listening. During the time that we were working in the movie theater, we were in the concession stand in the lobby, and like I said, this was kind of like you would think like the San Francisco Opera House, where they have a beautiful lobby and everything. People were literally would stand in line in that lobby where our concession stand was. And I really learned a lot about listening to people and hearing, just taking interest in people a lot. And as time went on, it was about being curious, always being curious about people. And I have been, the older I got, the more curious I got. And the more curious I got, the more successful I got.
Mm,
If I didn't know something, I'd go and research it. A very good friend of mine, Whitney, told me when I was in my 20s, she always give me dating advice. And she's much older than I was, and she would give me dating advice. And she said, you know what? If you want to stand out in a crowd, the best thing you can do is there's a gentleman that you like, or you want to be around a certain crowd, and you don't, if it's a bridge builder, let's say this guy is an architect or whatever, go study a little bit. Don't be an expert on it, but go study so you can ask questions, because people
right.
love to talk about themselves. And that was a very good lesson, and my mother taught me that too, is always take an interest in what people have to say. And and understand that people experience things differently
Yeah.
than we do. And then be curious about why they feel that way, which incidentally these days it really plays out very well for me,
I would
and
imagine.
life.
I would
So
imagine. And if you take that and combine it with people's names, right? Being curious and just saying, being connected with people in their names would has had to have served you really well.
yes, it has, and sometimes I don't realize it, and I'll have people that will tell me all the time. They say, "Well, you looked me in the eye, you asked me my name,
Yeah.
and mentioned my name several times after you met me." And and at first I would say, "Oh, well, it's I kind of before I learned, you know, about taking compliments. I said, oh, no, no. But it's really important to receive compliments too. When somebody says something to you, it's a gift to you, but it's also a gift to give for somebody else.
Right.
And
Right.
it's really important to honor that along the way, to honor people that give compliments, especially as women. We really have a hard time sometimes doing that. And that was something that I learned very early on and along the way, is when somebody gives me a compliment or somebody notices something, you say thank you, and not just say thank you, and receive it, because it
Absolutely.
connects you with the person.
I was just having that conversation with someone last week, and they were struggling with this concept. And it's like, just say thank you and then zip it. Right. Just
Right.
just say the words and zip it. Feel the sentiment, but say the words, and leave it right there. Because if you start with explanations or excuses about something, then you take away from the person that's giving you the compliment. You take something away from them,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Someone says you look really nice today, or that's a pretty dress, all this whole thing. And it's just
Yeah.
just say thank you and keep it moving. So those are three really good lessons. Do you have any other lessons that you think that have been important and served you well over the course of your career?
Well, on the note of saying thank you and receiving, I tell people, and some of my clients, I explain to them, when you said zip it, that's so great. But also, if you put your hand on your heart when somebody gives you a compliment and say thank you like that, it really does, it anchors it. So, that is something that has been very, very good for me and working with my clients. And other than that, it's just taking the time to listen and living in gratitude. One of the things, and I tell people all the time, I'm very proud of this, so I would love to share it with your audience,
Yes.
is when I get up in the morning, now I get up very early in the morning because I want me time. And me time
Yes.
is getting that. I open my eyes, and the first thing I do is I thank my faith. I believe in God, and I say, "Thank you, Lord, for another beautiful day. What can I do to show intentional gratitude? What do I get to be grateful for today?" And I call that intentional gratitude because it really opens a world of abundance for me. So lessons that I've learned is we have as much time as anybody else.
Yes.
Allow yourself and make it non-negotiable that this is your time. And the best way to do that is to start out in the morning an extra 5 minutes. If you're not an early riser, it's a choice. We all say it's a choice.
Right.
Wake up 5 minutes earlier. And also, by the way, tell your husband or your wife or whomever that don't talk to me for 5 minutes. This is my time. And just process and just realize, just have gratitude for the day. I get up at 4:30, and there's no other thing I get that anybody gets to do with me, because I get to walk, I get to meditate, I get to do my affirmations. I do
And
all
you do the most beautiful walks.
hey, listen, God gives me this wonderful palette that it's a race. For me, it's a race for the sun. I said, I'm going to beat that sun every morning. And it really is wonderful. And Jim Rohn used to say this: photograph, photograph, log, log. If you're not a writer, videotape, do whatever. Your life is valuable, and it's a great legacy to leave. And I love doing that, is just taking photographs to have that in my mornings. And it's just, I just allow yourself
Yeah.
time for you first. You cannot get into a car that doesn't have oil, water, or gasoline. And I'm not even talking about the food we put in us. You've got to fill your heart, your soul, and your mind before, and I say my God armor, whatever the universe armor, you've got to do that first. And you'll be amazed when you start doing this, how your life will shift organically. So that is my biggest lesson, is you've got to maintain. This is much more valuable than any Tesla, any
Yeah.
car that you can buy. And so feed it, feed it, feed it. And I say, please turn off the negative stuff on TV, everything else. Fine. If you are going to see something negative and you can't avoid it, just make sure that you give something positive to offset it. Because
I agree. I agree with that. For the longest time, I've had this practice at night. I have started actually going to bed without TV. So, and I started sleeping with a sleep mask, and I have the best sleep now. Um, Without the TV, but I don't sleep alone. I have a husband. And so maybe I'll have to sneak the TV out of the room. But at the moment there's a TV in there. And so he's a night owl. He tends to work later than I do. And I'm like you, I get up early, so I go to bed sort of early, and I just put my sleep mask on and go to sleep. Um, but I have found that the combination of a evening routine and a morning routine allows me to be productive in the day,
Mhm.
right? But it sets the tone for the day. And so I love being able to just I sleep well, and I take naps too. I take naps. I do. When we're done, I'll probably take a nap. Um, so it's this is all we have, right? This is all we have. And I love the lessons of being grateful and caring about people, being curious about them, caring about their names, caring about who they are as people. And when we are looking at opportunities in our lives, for whether we're in business or working for someone else, that these are lessons that will help to make being in those environments ones that are fulfilling and gratifying, and a, for us to be able to succeed in that. And so I thank you, Holly. And just, the lessons that you've shared, reinforcements about, the good things that we can do in our days. And I was telling the story about the bed because when I was watching TV before going to bed, I would watch Friends or Frasier because I didn't want news, right? I never have the news on in the bedroom, never have like negative things before I go to bed because I don't want that stuff rolling around in my head. And I do not start my day with that either. So no negative TV, um no social media until I get through my morning routine, because I want to set the day for in a way that makes it productive for me. And there's a time and place for those things. Need to stay informed, need to know what's going on, but it's not a constant diet. And so I love the lessons that you've shared here today. Just, do you have any final thoughts or words that you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Well, once again, like speaking into what you were saying is, you know, I'm really, really on a mission to tell people and ask people to be kind and to believe that everyone in this world, the majority of the people, have a, have the intention to be kind and nice. And my brother and I are photographers. My brother more so than me, but I always say, look at the world instead of the viewfinder, take it out to a wide angle lens, because what you see through the viewfinder may not is not going to be the whole story.
Right.
Widen your view, realize that there's everybody has a story, and you never know what it's going to be like unless you have walked in their shoes. So I just say, be kind, be loving, more so than ever. The moment, if anybody wants to attack for a minute, take a deep breath, widen your view, and realize that we all really care and we all want the same things.
That is so true. Very true. We may not go about it in the same way, but deep down we do all want the same things. And so I think that is love. And that is why we're here talking about loving your work. And Holly, thank you so much for sharing about doing the work that you love, about your journey to getting there, and sharing such great words of wisdom. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today.
Oh, thank you, Whitney. And I just love your wisdom too. I've had the chance to start to get to know you, and you inspire me every time I
Oh,
watch you. So thank you so
thank you.
much, Whitney.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And for those of you watching, if you'd like to get in touch with Holly, for coaches in particular, if you'd like to get in touch with Holly to have her help you with maybe an aspect of your business that you're not the most gung-ho about, she loves doing it. Let's offload that and let her help you. So we will put her contact information in the comments. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Love Your Work. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Holly. Bye.
Bye bye.